Overwatch is known for its diverse cast of characters. You've got people of all nationalities, sexualities, physicalities, so it was inevitable that they would add a character like Venture, the new DPS hero who is an archaeologist, wields a drill for a gun, and digs tunnels. Guys, Overwatch finally has Vietnamese representation. With the release of Venture, Valorant's Clove, and that one character from Elemental no one gives a shit about,
Who?
non-binary people are receiving a lot more acceptance into the mainstream, but it's still a bit of a foreign concept for some. And while there are excellent explanations already out there, I thought the internet, aka all 165 of you, could benefit from an explanation of the non-binary concept that would make sense even for your average Overwatch player. So, here we go. Okay, so this is probably the most common baseline understanding of it all. In most cases, you're born as either the male sex or the female sex, and then you're assigned the gender of either boy or girl. Okay? Cool. The major misconception is that someone's sex is the same as someone's gender. Fair enough, we grew up using sex and gender synonymously with each other, but in actuality there is a scientific distinction between the two. Someone's sex is determined by their biological features, chromosomes, genitals, hormones, and typically it's either female or male. And that was it, end of story. And then in 1955, John Money decided, but wait, there's more! This is the psychologist who conceptualized and popularized the word gender, using it as a word for someone's psychological sex. He theorized that all individuals had a gender role, which was
all those things that a person says or does to disclose himself or herself as having the status of a boy or man, girl or woman, respectively.
Now, traditionally, it's expected that your gender is analog with your sex, which means your characteristics, behaviors, and interests reflect what you have in your pants. Enter masculinity and femininity, which we as a
Say the line, Bart!
society further established by socially constructing the idea of what it means to be a man or woman. If your sex was male, then you would perform the gender role of a man by practicing masculinity, which includes
Being a tough guy, being very independent, and being unemotional.
If your sex was female, then you would perform the gender role of a woman by practicing femininity, which includes
being nurturing, reaching out, being emotional.
Masculinity meant playing with Hot Wheels instead of Barbie, and femininity meant having makeup instead of 2-in-1 shampoo. Almost everything we did was allocated to the binary of either masculine or feminine, and we would perform accordingly because we were getting taught what makes a man or woman were the things they do. At this point, our sex was irrelevant. It wasn't, you can't like the color pink, that's a vagina color. It wasn't, liking cars is such an XY chromosome thing. Instead, it was, stop crying, you're a man. Or, you fight like a girl. The one exception to this was grow up hair, but the point still stands. Having a penis wasn't good enough. To be a man, there were social-cultural expectations of masculinity to abide by. By emphasizing gender as a category of masculine and feminine characteristics, boy or girl have essentially become labels the same way we characterize people as either introverted or extroverted. Now, imagine your identity was predetermined and you were designated characteristics based on the gender binary. Just kidding, there's no need to imagine. I'm a very emotional person. I cry every time I watch Kung Fu Panda 2. Po finding inner peace by healing from his trauma and allowing himself to remember that his mother sacrificed herself by leaving Po alone in the radish box. Pardon me for crying at cinema, I'll fucking do it again. But I grew up being told that sensitivity was a feminine trait, so I guess if being emotional doesn't make me a man, then I guess that makes me a woman.
But you're not a woman, you have a penis, that makes you a man.
Okay, I guess I'm a man who is very emotional.
You call yourself a man when you're such a sook?
Okay, I guess that makes me a woman.
But you're not a woman, you have a penis, that makes you a man.
Eventually, psychologists, sociologists, and people who used Tumblr in the 2010s adapted Money's ideas of gender and realized sex is what you are, gender is who you are. And sometimes it doesn't align. With some people, the social standards and expectations of who they should be come into conflict with who they actually are. When I've been told that crying at animated pandas doesn't make me manly, then I give up trying to be a man. Money also said everyone has a gender identity, which is
the sameness, unity, and persistence of one's individuality as male or female, or ambivalent, especially as experienced in self-awareness and behavior.
Why can't academic papers just be straightforward? Motherfuckers are doing lingual gymnastics to gatekeep information. Just say, gender identity is how you perceive yourself in the context of gender. It's that fucking simple. Born a fella and identify with the fella gender? Hella, cisgender fella. Born a fella but identify with the gal gender?
You are a transgender.
But what happens if someone identifies with both genders simultaneously? What if your gender identity fluctuates between the two? What if someone doesn't identify with either gender in the binary at all? Ah, gee whiz, if only there was a— oh my god! Look, I'ma keep it a $1.50. I'm self-aware enough to know that I don't belong in either option of the gender binary. From a psychological perspective, I am very disconnected to society's ideas of man and woman. I grew up without having been encouraged to attain masculinity, nor was I discouraged from exploring femininity. I took an abnormal amount of opportunities to cross-dress. I indulged in a lot of feminine media, Fluttershy's the best pony, and also people have been calling me Marcy for the last decade. The cherry on top is that my mother is one of the most psychologically masculine people I know. She's tough, independent, and she used to beat my ass. So for me, masculinity and femininity were never kept within their respective sex, thus I was never able to form a proper gender identity within the binary. Also for me personally, I've seen men and women equally capable of possessing masculine or feminine traits. Honestly, I could have went my entire life being called male, but then upon getting my perm, my friend's dad genuinely mistook me for a lesbian. Then I learnt what androgyny was, read more about that, and I realized, oh, okay, so there is a term used for the gender equivalent of being an ambivert. This is the better definition of me. If there's a label that really articulates who you are, within reason, why not use it? It's also important to note you will have femboys, something I know nothing about, and drag queens who will indulge in femininity without actually identifying with the female gender. And that's cool. It all comes down to your own personal relationship with the concept of gender. So generally, non-binary is what you use when your psychological sex isn't compatible with the gender binary system. Gender shouldn't even be binary, but rather a spectrum, but that's a whole different fucking conversation. Side note, I did this graphic. Like, I'm learning how to do shapes and stuff. This is insane! They, them are detached from the gender binary, hence why they're the ideal pronouns to use, and while it is something to slowly adjust to, there are people who view it as such a major inconvenience. New patch notes for Earth just dropped. Society updated to allow people to identify themselves outside of the gender binary. Actively choosing not to adapt to these changes means to play on an outdated patch, and that's kinda cringe. Unless you're playing Bed Wars on 1.8.9, the objectively best patch to play Bed Wars on.
Holy shit! I just hit it! Ah! 8 diamonds! I just hit the clip! Oh my god!
But life isn't Bed Wars. Look, we did it with slurs, we removed nouns like and from our everyday vernacular to be more mindful of our progressing society. Now we're adding pronouns they, them to our everyday vernacular to be more mindful of our progressing society. Yep, sorry, progression requires adaptation. Don't like it? Okay, rot. Rot in tradition. Remain a cunt. Don't grow as a person. So in summary, what's happening with gender, not sex, there's a difference, is the non-conformity of social constructs, and it's objectively still within science. People don't want their body to dictate their identity. Fair enough, come on people, it's 2007. Alright, I hope this was informative, like and subscribe, watch my other stuff. Peace!